you have to commit to yourself, which is the hardest person to commit to. Because whenever we say yes to someone else, when they ask us something, we're usually saying no to something to ourselves. And I think it'll help the gap. I don't think it'll solve the problem. I don't think technology can replace all the people that have left.
Hello! This is CPA Career Paths podcast with Rosey Flaherty, CPA MSA, where we dive into thrilling journeys in the world of accounting. This episode is proudly sponsored by Chapman University's Aprio College of Business and Economics, located in beautiful sunny Southern California. Are you thinking about pursuing a master's in accounting? Chapman's MSA program is tailored for ambitious professionals like you. With intimate class size and a collaborative atmosphere, you will receive personalized attention from world-class faculty who bring extensive industry expertise to the classroom. Enhance your accounting skills, fulfill CPA license requirements, and elevate your career with Chapman's flexible MSA program. Discover more and apply today at chapman.edu/MSA. So what do you not like the most after the merging, but you still have to push yourself to be positive?
I didn't always know why we made the decisions that we made. So in the beginning, not knowing the why and not having access to the why, I said, well, keep your eyes out on if you could try to figure out the whys later on. And I still had a lot to learn, right? I'd never been part of a national firm. All of a sudden, I had to go bill out $1 million minimum. So I think I was at like 750 when we came in. So I was like, all right, well, I got to go find $250,000 worth of business. This will be fun. I think I did like $1,014,000. Okay. I was really happy. I just barely got there. But I was like, all right, like I hadn't ever had to do that, like really hit a revenue target that was a huge stretch goal, and I was able to do it. So that made me really happy. And then the pandemic happened and the CARES Act showed up, and they needed people to raise their hands to go be CARES Act leaders. And once the tax deadline was extended, I was like, I'm pretty good at learning still. And this is a thing that nobody knows more than anybody about because they just wrote it. I was like, so we're all starting at square one. Sure, I'll give that a whirl. Plus, I thought it would be a way to showcase my leadership style and show that treating people like people, not worrying so much about hours, focusing on outcomes, being okay with the answer being, I don't know, because nobody knows. I kind of coined it adaptive leadership. I don't know if that's an actual word or not, but that's how I thought of it. I was like, this is going to be the way I can figure out, like, where's my future? Because they're going to see how this goes. And I thought it would be successful. That was my plan. It was pretty successful. So that was really like the big opportunity that I took to show a bunch of strangers that I worked with that I knew what I was doing in this arena, and let's figure out what the next steps are.
Wow. I'm very impressed about you getting from the part that you so good at technical knowledge and you struggle with managing staff to the point now you identify your leadership style and focusing on people. It's just like a big jump from who you were before, that you have a big wall and then took you 2 years to get over it, to now you are like a great leader. Now my question for you is that when you identify your leadership style, did you identify that style by yourself, or did it take time for you to identify it, or someone else helped you to identify it?
It started back at Philomeno with the people consultants, where the leadership style that we were learning was one that put an equal amount of expectations of excellence for the product we were doing and how we treat our people. Like if we were looking at it on a graph, we called it 9-9, like because it was at box 9 for each one. I've heard it called other things, but that's pretty much the concept. Like Aprio calls it head and heart. Like we care equally about the people and the quality of the work that we do. The words that we use aren't as important as the concept of let's treat people like they're humans and let's do the absolute best we could do for clients at the same time. And that excellence leaves room for imperfection and failure and learning and getting better. It's not perfection. Perfection leaves no room for failure, no room for growth. It only guarantees you sustained mediocrity. Excellence lets you mess up and get better tomorrow.
I like it. Wow, Mike, I know that a lot of firms, they always say that they focus on people. But at the same time, a lot of staffs within the same firms thinking that they are just numbers because they don't feel like the firm act on what they say, like they care about people. And so in that case, if staff's feeling that way in the situation of the firm saying that, hey, we care about people, do you have any tips and advice what those staff should they
speak up and talk to the partners? Should they talk to managers? What is the best approach for them to make them feel like they get enough care, enough attention as a part of the firm, not just a number?
Knowing that from what I said earlier, it's your career, not anyone else's. The best piece of advice I got was be the manager you wish you had. So if your manager's not taking it upon themselves to come in and say, all right, here are the metrics that you had for the last month or the last quarter. Tell me what your thoughts are. Like, we saw that you missed your charge hours, but your realization was awesome. Like, tell me what that makes you think of. Now, if the person goes, well, I was really efficient on my project, so I went home. Awesome answer. Tell me how you're more efficient. Like, okay, can you teach other people how to be that efficient? Like, is it a software thing? Is it something that's replicatable? How could you be that efficient? Like, because that's a good skill. Or is it, hey, I didn't hit my chargeable hours because, something happened in my family and I had to, deal with it. And I tried to make up for it by, being quicker on my jobs. And it turns out I got it right more often on the first time. Might have been luck. I wasn't really sure because I had a lot going on. But like, you get to hear more from the human, like their explanation of why. A lot of people, when they manage off a spreadsheet with metrics, forget that there's a human attached to that name next to it. It's like, well, Rosey missed her charge hour goals. She's not performing up to snuff. You might be amazing.
Yeah, I see. So having a conversation, that's the key. And understanding the situation and work it out from the situation, not just go straight to the conclusion right away without knowing the situation around. I like it.
Right. And maybe 50% of the time, it's the staff going, oh, I didn't realize I was close to missing my charge hour goals. Like, I just finished the work that people gave me. I didn't ask for more. All right. Well, that's why your realization was high and you missed your charge hours. But you could have asked. And that's a learning point. Like, the manager also needs to be asking the staff, how you doing on your workload, right? Nothing's ever really one person's responsibility. So if the staff in that situation is like, all right, well, how do I get that feedback? They could ask their manager for it. If that's super scary, they could talk to a couple of their colleagues, like if they're at a larger firm. Like, hey, are you getting any feedback on this? Anybody tell you anything? Mm-hmm. If that feedback really matters to you and you're not getting it and your colleagues aren't getting it, is that the best place for you? I don't know. But those are the next questions to ask yourself. But I would always say, before you just make a decision like, oh, they're not giving me feedback, I'm out of here. I think you got to give your manager the opportunity and the company the opportunity to fix the thing that you want fixed. Maybe they don't know either.
Yep. I think that's a good advice. That's a really good advice because I had actually my own example that I was so stressed. I was so depressed at this specific job. But at the same time, I was so scared. I was so nervous to speak up. I'm not this like, if you see me today, say, oh yeah, Rosey, you like can talk to anyone and it's easy for you. But no, it was very scary to me before that I was so afraid to speak up. So instead of speaking up, I was looking for another job. And then when I submit the resignation letter, the panel sits down and asks me, so Rosey, why did you decide to leave? And like, I thought you did a good job. And I thought you getting along well with the firm. And I start telling all the what's going on and then cannot hold my tears and then everything. And then he like, oh my God, I had no idea this was happening. And I was like, but it did not just happening to me because other staffs had the same issue with the same manager. And so if I did not speak up, he had no ideas. It means no one else at that firm spoke up as well. Was not just me. And after I left, it appeared that most my peers at the same time at that point, 90% of them left as well. Could be either they did not speak up, just like how I did, and they just decide to leave because just one specific manager is just made this so difficult to work with, and then just made all people decide to leave the firm just because of him. But yes, share the opinion, let them have a chance to fix. I never had that. I learned that from my very first firm I work in tax. And so after that, I always communicate. I always spoke up and say, this is how I feel. This is what my goal is. And I would like to know how can I get there? Or like, I'm not feeling comfortable doing this. How can I do it? So yeah, speaking up sounds very scary sometimes, Mike, because not all young staffs feel brave to say it.
We were those young staff. Like, we were each that person that might have been terrified to talk or kept getting it wrong, right? If we think back through this interview, like, it's not like we just showed up as 22-year-olds in a profession and we had this level of ability to have conversations and challenge historical norms. I was having a conversation with my my daughter, she's 19, she's in college, and she's like, yeah, but Dad, you could talk to anybody about anything. I was like, Sophia, you should have seen me when I was 17. Like, I was like, it wasn't even close to the same human being. Like, no, this is growth. She's like, I can't even imagine you not being like that. I was like, well, I'm glad you think that way, but I want to let you know, like, you at 19, like, you are in a way better spot. Like, emotional EQ, being able to converse with people, like, you're way better than I was at 19. Like, you are on your way, kiddo.
Yeah, before, I did not even know how to start a conversation at the networking event, how to carry a conversation. Like, someone may start the conversation, I just stood there, and I was like, okay, yeah. And I was frozen. It is so different now when I attend networking events. I feel more comfortable talking to people, feel more comfortable like carrying the conversation or starting the conversation. It takes time. I would say that it takes time to learn and take time to improve yourself. It's not like you wake up in the morning and say, oh, I'm a different person now.
Right. And I think that gives me an idea. And I hadn't thought about this until just now. A lot of networking events, you tell the partners, hey, partners, bring some staff with you. Well, that's great. So the staff stands next to the partner. The partner never acknowledges the staff. And the staff sits there at the end going like, great. I was at a networking meeting for an hour and a half and I had one beer. I didn't learn anything. It wasted my time. And now I'm hungry. Imagine what would happen if the manager brought the staff, but actually cared enough to be like, all right, hey, Rosey, I'm going to bring you to this thing. Tell me 3 things about you that you really enjoy talking about. We can talk about that. Because if somebody brings one of those up in conversations, that's a really nice lead in for you to say, hey, Rosey also loves flowers. And then that's a way for you to just start talking about flowers and something you're really comfortable with. It's not business, it's not work. You're not trying to close a deal, nothing. It's just like, you could talk about that. That's a great way to make somebody get into networking by communicating beforehand, back and forth, so you could set someone else up for success.
Wow, that's really good advice. I'm going to take this on my staffs. Oh my God. Because normally I just feel that if I go to the event with my staffs, they will feel comfortable because I'm around. I never think about ask them, hey, what do you feel comfortable talking about? Or hey, this person talk about this, and then my staff, he or she is so good about this topic. That's an open eyes. Thank you, Mike. I'm taking this advice.
If you were with me, I'd be like, all right, I like baseball, running, Disney, Harry Potter, and I still play softball. Like, if any of those things pop up in a conversation, you can lead me in and I can talk about them about anybody. Like, that's good. You don't even need really big, long conversations with your staff about it. Like, just tell me something that you're comfortable with, that you like doing. They might say, like, oh, I love watching Breaking Bad. Okay, whatever the thing is, like it gives you something, right? So that as the conversation flows, here, I'm gonna pedestal sell you so that you can be really comfortable.
Yes, I remember that. I think very first time in college, one of my professors took me to Chamber of Commerce event, and I was freaking out because I never attend any events before, and I asked my professor like, so what should I ask? What should I take note? How could I remember people's names? What should I do after that? Like, I have no clues what I'm going to do in that networking event at all. I was so nervous. But we always have the first time, right? The first time is always fun.
Yeah, wouldn't you rather be terrible at something when you're 21 years old and people expect you to be terrible at it than not do it at all, and all of a sudden you're 27 and people expect you to at least be decent at it, and you're like, wow, you still can't hold a conversation, huh, Mike? Like, what's wrong with you? No, fall flat on your face when everybody expects you to.
Yeah, that's true. So going back to your career, that you decide to move to your current firm right now, Aprio Firm Alliance. Why did you decide to make that move?
So what I found, we were talking about earlier, like if you tell somebody why they're doing something, they're more engaged in it. And we were talking more about specific projects. And then it kind of moved more toward their career. Mine started to move toward impact on their profession. So I thought with the leadership skill set that I was developing and I was showcasing, that I could turn that into something where the firm could have been like one of the top 20 firms, does things totally different. We can go create a whole new army of partners, like 10 a year, that all think and act the same way, that's more human-centric, and that wasn't in their game plan. So as I was talking with some of my Leadership Academy friends about, all right, well, that's not the job that I want anymore. What should I do next? They encouraged me to be honest and vulnerable. They challenged me. They gave me summaries of like my ramblings. And then they're like, well, what job title is that? I was like, I don't know. Like, but I want to go make a dent in the profession. Like, we've had 5 or 6 problems for 20 years and I want to help move them forward. Okay. So then my Leadership Academy alumni friends are all like, have their ears to the grindstone for me. And one of them, who was in my class actually, was in a meeting with my now boss. My now boss was like, hey, so we're going to go acquire an alliance and we need someone to run it. Who do you know? My friend goes, you got to hire Mike. He just quit his job being a partner at a national firm. He grew up in all local firms. You have all local firms in that client base. He wants to make a dent in the profession. Like, you should just stop looking and hire Mike. And one, I like gave him a huge high five and hug. I was like, thank you for that glowing recommendation. But it got me the interview. I talked with the firm. I obviously won the role, and it's what I've been doing the last 3 years. And now I get to have conversations with other accounting firm owners, and I get to help them realize what they could be because they're totally in control of it. They don't need to go through a board of directors. They don't need a whole bunch of other people to buy into something. They can just make a change in their firm. They could decide tomorrow to be different. And that's a ton of fun. It gives them a ton of flexibility. And I think that's where the next big wave of change in the profession is going to come, is with people starting or taking their firms to places that give them a life-work balance, not work-life or some other terms. Like, I like putting the word life there, where work ends up being part of what you do for your life. And over the course of people's careers, that ebbs and flows based on all of their personal circumstances. Right now, we're going to have partners at firms with ailing parents they have to take care of, and brand new staff or seniors that have babies to take care of. And they're both going to need time off and flexibility and understanding from their peers, because one day the thing is going to happen in their life where they need that same amount of flexibility. And I think that's a great human-centric way of running an accounting firm. It's going to attract the right people. It's going to attract the right clients. And that's what I think the culture of the great local firms is going to be in the very near future. And the ones that are there now, they're crushing it.
That's awesome. So you mainly focus on leadership, on people now. You're not really like working on technical area or doing tax return reviewing that anymore?
Correct. I do 6 tax returns now for 6 family members. And I'm trying to get that number down every year.
Wow. So do you still have to keep up with all the new tax regulations? It's just because you're interested in, or you really focus on leadership, changing profession only?
I have to know that the new things happen. I don't need to know what they all say, but I need to know the impact that they have. Like, on the audit side, we're going to have standards on quality management that have to be implemented very soon. I don't know exactly when, because I didn't do a lot of auditing, but I know that's a big deal. And I've got roughly 40 alliance members around the country, and 2/3 of them have audit departments. So I know this is a big deal. So we reached out to them. We're like, do you want to start a peer group specifically about this, where we just get together and talk about how you're going to solve this issue, how Aprio is solving this issue within our audit department? Maybe some of our resources are available to you or are useful as we're going through this. Like, we talked to other friends, like Sarah Fleishel's running an audit transformation community. Maybe we could use some of her knowledge and expertise that she's got. And for the listeners, Sarah's also a Leadership Academy alumnus. That's why I mentioned her specifically. Like, this is what we do there. So we try to see, like, what are the trends and the things that are happening that we have to talk about. I know we're going to start a new tax peer group specifically around the tax law change whenever it happens, because we want to give the firms the resources so they can have conversations without worrying about, their neighbor down the road listening in or the accounting firm across the street. The firms are nationwide. The firm in Maine will talk to the firm in Texas. We'll talk to the firm in California about how they're solving a problem. That makes all those firms better.
Yeah. And so now, because you're involved in a lot of leaderships and then focusing on how to evolve this profession, what are 3 keys that you think that this profession going to change in the future?
I think that's like an intertwined matrix that it goes 1, 2, 3. So I think, for one, we have to recognize like where we are in the supply and the demand curve. There's too much work. There's not enough people. I don't think that changes until after I retire. Some basic demographic things about population sizes. We're working hard to try to get more people into public accounting, but that was on a dip, and we've got to correct that. It's like to try to get back to a little bit normal. I think if we start doing that, we can raise prices, which gives us more money to invest in some of the technology so that we can take out the rote and repetitive work and focus on meeting our clients where they are and really advising them. And that's going to drive some new and interesting, cool projects that will also increase some revenue, which gives more revenue to increase the starting salaries for our team and be competitive with other professions. Then that will have more kids come into our profession, and it can just keep cycling through. The snowball keeps rolling down the hill. But I think it really starts with recognizing like where we are in this economic cycle, the importance of what we do, and really focusing on what you do at your firm. We can do so many things, right? If you're a tax and wealth management practice, like go crush that and be just that. Be just that to just dentists or just doctors or just veterinarians or just professional athletes or musicians. Like you can niche down and be the absolute industry expert on something, and then have a network of people that you know and trust. So when your clients need something that you don't do, you go, hey, Rosey, you do audits, right? I don't do those. Can't stand them. My client on a nonprofit board, they need someone to do it. Can you help them out? I think clients are going to have multiple accounting firms that service them in the future. It'll be like a general contractor type model where sometimes with a general contractor and sometimes with a specialist that comes in.
So you mentioned about number 1, number 2. Did you mention about number 3?
I threw technology in there because it changes so fast. It can do so many cool things. So it was like recognizing where we are in the economic cycle, investing in the technology, and then increasing the starting salaries, which all 3 of those might align with 3 out of the 5 recommendations from the National Pipeline Advisory Group. But I believe in them too. Like I like those 3 things if you limit me to 3.
Okay, so you mentioned about knowing like supply and demand. And then you mentioned about technology. Do you think that technology is going to fix this supply and demand? That technology is going to help that gap that we are missing, that we do not have enough staffs in this profession?
I think it'll help the gap. I don't think it'll solve the problem. I don't think technology can replace all the people that have left. And I don't know that like some of the automation and AI technology is advanced enough. Like there's a responsible use of AI type of concept that's out there. I'm not an expert at it, so I'm not even going to try to explain what it is, but I can understand the concept of we can't just let robots go run wild on stuff. Like, hey, here's my tax info, and all of a sudden I get a return back with no human looking at it ever. Maybe that'll happen one day. I'd be surprised if it happened in the next 2 years, but I don't know where the technology is going either. So I think if we continue to look at what it could do and invest in it, but I think one of the key components that should be in there, if I remember what Byron told me, is you got to have a human like intervene at some point. Like you can't just let a computer decide something and then go do it. Somewhere between there, you get a human. I think especially in our profession with how much public trust there is for us and what our work product is used for. I mean, the capital market utilizes the audit to make sure that the numbers companies report are right, and that's how they make investment and risk decisions.
Yeah, I agree with you about that. And I think someone told me from another discussion about this profession, the reason why it seems like we have supply issues because in the past people say that technology is going to replace accountants. That's why people are afraid of joining this profession because they know that that could be an issue in the future. Now a lot of people is coming in and say that no, technology is not going to replace it. Technology is not going to help you communicate with the client. Technology is not going, clients would not want to just communicate with a robot. They want someone to understand human emotions, understand human interactions, and good things that robots do not have emotions, but we do. So that separates us from technology. I think the CEO, one of the CEO mentioned that to me, that's the reason why we have the supply issues. Now we try to say that, no, it's not happening. So coming back to this profession.
Well, look how many times just in our careers that technology has disrupted what we do and the net result was positive. I grew up, I used green bar paper to do columnar financial statements that I had to add up. A skill that I developed was how to find math errors. That's an irrelevant skill now. Like typing fast on a 10 key is nearly an irrelevant skill. So what do? We're like, oh no, like the technology, like Excel is going to take our job. Like, no, it's not. It just made it easier. Like we drag and click and we could add the things up. We know the numbers right. Like, now we got to do something with the numbers. And then we got like some of the financial statements could be automatically created using bank feeds and maybe throw a little bit of AI on top to like look at like Staples as office supplies. It could figure that out. But you still needed some humans in there for like some weird stuff. Like what's AAA? Like are those batteries or is that insurance? Like we got right like there and or you order from Bob's Market. Well, what is that? Like is that like an Ace Hardware? Is it a grocery store? Like what and maybe that doesn't know where to put it. So you still need some humans in there. But now we're talking to the clients more about what do the financials mean. Like now we're doing the FP&A stuff. So we've always been constantly evolving in what our role is. And the amount of time it used to take us was really relevant because you can't write on green bar faster than anybody else. You just, right? But now when we're sitting in those meetings with clients going over what we've seen in financial statements, we're taking years of experience and number of things that we've seen and we're applying it to a specific situation. And we're saying, Rosey, have you considered X? And you go, no, that's an amazing idea. What's that sentence worth to the client? If it's $1 million idea, that could be a $10,000 sentence. It's not, I'll charge you 15 minutes times my rate for this meeting. Just like if I have to go fix an error in the accounting software because, somebody messed something up or there's a broken link, 6 hours times someone's rate isn't what that's worth either. Like the accounting system is supposed to work. Don't charge me because you broke it. I mean, if I'm going to fix yours, I should charge you because you broke yours. But like if we're doing the accounting for you, like that's on me. But I can make that up in that meeting talking about like the advisory stuff and helping you run your business better because we see so many businesses and we can take information we learn from one industry and apply it to another. And the construction person has never run a manufacturing plant or a warehouse distribution, but there could be relevant concepts there that we connect dots and we go give Carrie, the leader of that construction company, what she needs to make the best decisions as CEO.
Yeah, I like it. I hope these people who are listening to this podcast will have a better ideas about what's coming in technologies and how technology can support us, not replace us. I know I talk about this so much on my podcast, but I want to emphasize again because it's really important. I think a lot of staffs come to me and ask me that, so what do you think about technologies coming up? Do you think our job going to be easier? Do you think that they're going to hire less people? So this podcast will answer a lot of those questions.
I would say I want to learn from them. I want to turn the question right back on them and say, what technology exists to make your job easier and should we be using it? Like, better than me. You do that part every day. Like, I want to support you going to be a little entrepreneurial and going to investigate it and seeing what might work. Like, you teach me that stuff. I'll teach you what I've learned. Deal?
I learned a lot from our conversation today, Mike. I think you have a great mindset on a lot of things, from learning, from being positive, from constant feedback, and also from leadership style.
Thanks, Rosey.
I think to get where you are right now, I think you absolutely deserve the position and everything, because I feel like it's not easy for you to go through all this career growth, but you have been trying so hard to get where you are right now. And that's why I would love to have your story on my podcast so people can learn from that. But we learned so much about your career. We never talk about what you do for fun on the other side. I know you like sport. That's what I know. But what's something fun about you that people normally don't know?
So my wife and I celebrated our 20th anniversary a few weeks ago, and we have 2 daughters who are freshmen and sophomores in college. One is in northeastern Massachusetts and one is in Southern California, and we live in Connecticut.
Wow.
Our family loves traveling. We've been to 32 states together. I've been to 40. I think my wife's been to 33.
Oh my God, that's a lot. What is your favorite state?
I guess it depends on the time of year and why. We really enjoyed Nashville in Tennessee, and the other part of Tennessee we really enjoyed was the mountains on the East Coast. We stayed in the Great Smoky Mountains and just above Gatlinburg. That was a lot of fun. Southern California is beautiful, where my daughter goes to college, so we really like that area. There is something about New England, though. Like where we live in Connecticut, in 2 hours, we can get to Boston, New York, the mountains in Vermont, the beaches in Rhode Island. So there's pros about each parts of the country.
Yeah.
And that's what we like about it.
Yeah. If you ever plan to go to Boston, give me a heads up. I would love to meet up in Boston.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
You're on my list.
Yes. Thank you. I don't get it. You work so hard in your career. How did you find the time to travel all those 40 states?
Well, what do we work for? Like, it's not just work 52 weeks out of the year the whole time. Like, that's kind of one of the things that motivated me to go into work was, I still want to go see all the baseball stadiums. I've been to 30 stadiums. I think there's 6 or 7 teams I haven't seen yet. Because I've seen some team stadiums twice, as they've had stadiums over my lifetime. So that's how I got to a lot of states. I go on trips with my dad, but also just family vacations. Well, we will purposely go pick a group of states, and go visit 3 or 4 of them over the course of a week.
Wow, you work hard and you play hard too. I like it.
That's one of the whys, is to go do those other things, to be able to go pay for college tuitions, to be able to pay for my daughter to be on soccer teams, or the other one to do dance and ballet and theater, for me to be able to play golf and softball, my wife to have her hobbies. She runs a lot, so race fees can add up, and you go through sneakers fast too, or her cross stitching. Those are the things that we spend the money on. We go do experiences. We don't just buy stuff.
I like it. I think that's what my husband and I should start doing it. We're like so busy, work so hard, and then relocate across the country, and then try to settle in. And then it's just a lot of things going on that we couldn't remember when was the last time we actually travel for fun. Like too busy to get used to new life. But I love that lifestyle that I want to try to talk to my husband that we may do something fun.
Yeah. I figured it out for real, like for real. The first time we went on an international trip, we did a week-long cruise. And this was when Wi-Fi on cruise ships and international plans were like prohibitively expensive. So I was out of touch for a whole week. No clients left. The office didn't burn down. I still had a job when I got back. The cats got fed. Like nothing bad happened. I was like, oh, I should never be too busy to like take my vacation, to like totally unplug, like not check email in the morning and at night. Like, nope, I'm out. Like I'll be back on Wednesday. I'll probably take a day to check emails. I'll probably call you back on Thursday. If you need immediate help, call my colleague. I set expectations out of office, like, and I stick to them.
That's good. You set the boundaries. That's something that we always say, that you need to set the boundary, but it's not easy.
You have to commit to yourself, which is the hardest person to commit to. Because whenever we say yes to someone else, when they ask us something, we're usually saying no to something to ourselves. And are accustomed to breaking promises that we make to ourselves, so we keep them for someone else.
Yep, I agree. I feel like our audience is going to learn so much from this podcast. And before we end this podcast, I would like to ask if you can give some tips and advice for young professions in this career, how they can advance their career. Well, I know they learn a lot through this already, but I would like to summarize some tips and advice you think the best for them.
Read books or watch TED Talks. Like I usually put a list of those that I really liked at the end of my presentations. Like I love Sean Achor. He's a positive psychologist professor from Harvard. I believe he's one of the people that started and founded that entire genre. Funny thing is his sister followed him into it. Find his TED Talk. That's really good. The Big Leap was career changing. Think Fast and Slow by Dan Kahneman helped me figure out like how to get my brain to slow down a bit. And then because I was terrible at EQ, Jen Shirkani has a book, Ego versus EQ. And she gives examples. And every time she gave an example, I was like, oh, I'm totally the ego guy. But I didn't know I was totally the ego guy until afterward when I was reading the EQ thing. I was like, oh, no, I'm totally the ego guy. But it helped me figure out like the EQ response to a similar situation. And read your professional publication. Found the Leadership Academy because I read the Journal of Accountancy. I increased my tax knowledge by reading the Tax Advisor. So whatever it is that you're doing, like go read about it. Read from other experts.
Great advice. I love it. Thank you so much for your time today, Mike. And I hope you have a great weekend coming up.
Thanks a lot, Rosey. Really appreciate the time. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you.